Is there a war coming in the Middle East? Are we headed toward a one-world government, a one-world religious system? Will America be attacked again? Do ancient prophetic texts warn of the time we are living in? Are we in the last days, the time of Jacob's trouble, the end of the world as we know it? And what of the increase of UFO sightings? While we may disagree as to what is causing the phenomena, we can agree that it is real, burgeoning, and not going away. Is this the coming great deception that ancient prophecy warns us about? Does time seem to be accelerating? Join me, your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli, as we explore these and other riveting and stimulating topics. This is Acceleration Radio. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. Welcome to yet another, that's what I should say. Let me try that again. Welcome to yet another installment of Acceleration Radio. Great to be here. Lots on the stuff tonight. Lots on the docket. Lots of things to talk about. ISIL is definitely not going away. This is the JV team that are, with all due respect to our President of the United States, said these guys are just JV team. JV team. Are you kidding me? The whole entire planet is seething right now because of ISIL, the Islamic State of Syria, Iraq, and the Levant. That's the original name. It was shortened to ISIS and then finally just IS, Islamic State. I'm going to blog about this tomorrow, but I'm going to give you like a heads up now before we get into the docket. And I've got lots of stuff in the queue here. So I've got a lot on my plate, but I want to talk about this because the blog tomorrow, and we need to talk about this, folks. We need to really get our heads around it. And we need to start writing congressmen and senators and, our politicians locally. And we need to start talking it up in our churches. Here's the deal. There are approximately 1.5 billion, with a B, 1.5 billion Muslims on the planet. You got that? 1.5 billion Muslims. If only 1% are radicalized, it's 150 million people. Let's say it's 0.5%. 75 million people. Let's say it's less than that. You get where I'm going with this? Do you get what we're up against here? These are unprecedented, tenuous times. Italy now has declared a state of war against ISIL. They are terrified. Who wouldn't be? There are sleeper cells all throughout Europe. And guess what, folks? There are sleeper cells in the United States. In World War II, when we finally went to war with Japan, we stopped allowing, to the best of my knowledge, people from Japan to come into this country. Think about it. Just think about it. When we went to war with Germany, same thing. Why is it that we have not stopped the immigration of anyone from so-called terrorist countries? What is going on here, folks? We need to wake up and understand what's going on. There's a clip I'm going to post where there's this imam, I think it's in Belgium. And he basically states openly, 20 years from now, there will be Sharia. 20 years from now, there'll be Sharia. That's it. That is the goal. That is the goal. And it's time for the American people to wake up and understand what is happening in Europe is starting to happen here. And I realize that moderate Muslims will stand up and say, well, it really isn't that way. And this guy said there were only 60 people that had their hands cut off. Excuse me, 60 people in 1,300 years that had their hands amputated? I don't think so. We are in a religious war. The present political landscape is in direct correlation to supernatural events that happened in some cases millennia ago. We are looking at two separate supernatural events. The Prophet Muhammad receiving the Quran and the Judeo-Christian Bible. That's what's happening here. There's a supernatural element to it that the media won't get near and touch, but that's what's happening here. And all we need to do is look at the 21 Coptic Christians who were also Egyptian, who were brutally beheaded. And folks, there's some funky stuff with that video. And I'll tell you why. Unless all these Egyptians who are in the orange jumpsuits are under 5 feet tall, most of the guys all in black are well over 7 feet. I'll leave it at that. Think about that. And yet our news media refused to say, in some quarters of our news media, that the Egyptians were actually Coptic Christians, and that's why they were being beheaded, and that's why they were being killed. We're far down the rabbit hole. World War III has begun. Wake up. Wake up. On a sad note, John Paul Jackson passed away yesterday. I went to one of his lectures. I didn't know the man personally, but anytime we lose a watchman like this, it's extremely sobering. And all of us who are in the saddle, as it were, wonder if we'll be taken out the same way. How long do we have here? There's no way of knowing that, of course. From the blog, John Podesta, and I want to kind of get right into that. Oh, come on, computer. Let me see. I'm just waiting, folks. Meanwhile, since I've got a spinning disc and I can't scroll down, I don't know what's happening with my computer here. The distraction of the week is back to Bruce Jenner. Lion Brian had it last week. This week it is Bruce Jenner. So let me see. For some reason, and I don't understand why, my computer is acting up like crazy, and I have no idea why it's doing live radio, and here I am desperately trying to, okay, everything seems to be good. Can I scroll down? Please, let me scroll down. Okay, it's working, but it's slow. Please bear with me. The title of this post is called John Podesta Soft Disclosure. Former Obama aide Podesta regrets not disclosing UFO files. Quote, finally, my biggest failure of 2014, once again, not securing the disclosure of the UFO files. The truth is out there, he tweeted on Friday, his last day in the White House. Here's the blog. Out of all the statements made by John Podesta, the media could report on this statement got their attention. Interesting. I call this soft disclosure, as we have a top U.S. government official hinting at the disclosure of secret UFO files. It's another step toward the day when full disclosure of the so-called UFO or extraterrestrial presence really happens and everyone's paradigm changes in an instant. Yesterday at the close of the blog post, I wrote this. With that stated, and as absurd as it may sound in this context, we may be looking at the revealing of the so-called extraterrestrial presence soon, and when they arrive, they will state that they created the world's religions. This would bring an end to the fighting and act as the impetus to forming of a one world religious system that the book of Revelation tells us. End times? You bet. Yesterday on Prophecy Watcher interview, Gary Stearman and I discussed the biblical passage where Jesus warns us, men fainting from fear from what is coming on the earth. And folks, I got to tell you, I am excited about Prophecy Watchers. Richard Shaw were there. We shot 4 programs with Gary. Bob Ulrich has done an amazing job in 5 months. And they've got a building. Bob and Gary have they're just incredible. The building is there. The studio is up and running. Tyler is doing all the camera work. It's just absolutely fantastic. And for those of you who have supported them, hats off. It is incredible what they have done in 5 months. Gary was in top form, and this is going to be released soon. More updates will be on the blog, lamarzulli.wordpress.com. So keep it there, and you can be apprised of when Richard and I will be appearing. I did 3 shows. I did 2 shows by myself. Richard did 1 show by himself, and we did one show together. So pretty cool. Let's go back. Men fainting from fear from what is coming on the earth. While we don't know exactly what Jesus is referring to, boy, my computer's having trouble. Sorry, folks. With the ongoing UFO sightings worldwide and the fact that the follow-up sentence right afterwards tells us, for the powers of heavens will be shaken, seems to point, in my opinion, to the burgeoning UFO phenomenon. Here's the warning from Luke 21 in full. There will be signs in the sun, moon, and the stars. And on earth, dismay among the nations, in perplexity at the roaring of the sea and waves, men fainting from fear and the expectation of the things which are coming upon the world. For the powers, the armies of heaven will be shaken. Verse 27, one of my favorite lines. Then the earth and those on it, they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Even so, Yeshua come. Think about it. Why is Yeshua taking the time to tell his disciples what will commence at the end of the age? His statement is a dire warning of what will come upon the earth at some point. Now let's go back to Podesta, who is calling for the disclosure of the extraterrestrial presence. He wants the folks to know what is really going on. The churches, for the most part, won't even address the subject. And yet, we have the Ancient Alien series now in its 7th season and still going strong. We see movies like Jupiter Rising, see last week's blog post, which talk about the Earth being seeded here by E.T. We have Richard Dawkins and others who promulgate the panspermia paradigm, as their embrace of the theory of evolution won't allow for creation by a holy God. In England, more people believe in E.T. than in God, and yet in most instances, the church in the USA are afraid to engage the subject. I get emails almost every day from people who have been abducted, or have had a sighting, or contact of some sort, and are trying to come to grips to it. When we take a hard look at the warnings that Yeshua gives us, and then look at what is manifesting, what else could he be talking about? The powers of heaven shaking? Men fainting from fear? Something is coming, which is unprecedented. In my opinion, this is the revealing of the so-called extraterrestrial presence. It is the ultimate game changer. Disclosure may be closer than we think. And when it happens, what will you do? How will it affect your life? What will it do to your faith in the God of the Bible? How will you stand against the deception? For I believe the revealing of E.T. will, in fact, be the great deception, the strong delusion that the Bible warns us of. UFO disclosure? End times? You bet. Well, folks, let's go back up to the top and look at the docket and see what's here. By the way, March 12th to 15th, I will be at Lionheart Ministries in Knoxville, Tennessee, with Russ Dizdar and Randy DeMaine. Pastor Casper, I think, will be leading worship. I will also be speaking March 18th at Calvary Chapel, East Albuquerque. March 20th, Farmington Dines Baptist Church. Very, very busy. March 29th, Sunday morning, right here in Southern California. So go to the blog site, lamarzulli.wordpress.com, and keep abreast of what is going on. The Jordanian update, I want to talk about that. This is from the blog again. I think you will find this incredibly interesting. I know I did. It is just incredible what is going on here. World War III and anti-Semitism, end times. A video purporting to show the mass beheading of Coptic Christians was released Sunday by militants in Libya, affiliated with the Islamic State group. Yemen's last Jews' exodus after Islamist militia takeover. Folks, it's happening. It's happening. Harassment by the Houthi movement, whose motto is death to America, death to Israel, curse to Jews, victory to Islam, caused the Jews in recent years to largely quit the northern highlands they shared with Yemen's Shiites for millennia. Again, I'll say it. If only 1% of 1.5 billion Muslims on the planet are radicalized, that's 150 million people. What don't we get? It's happening, folks. This is the beginning of World War III. Fort Carson Brigade head to Kuwait for possible showdown with ISIL. As Congress mulls America's war with the Islamic State terror group, more than 4,000 Fort Carson soldiers prepared Thursday to leave for Kuwait, where they will take over as America's largest ground force in the troubled regions. Netanyahu calls for mass immigration of European Jews to Israel. After yet another Islamic terror attack targeting Jews, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday called for a massive immigration of European Jews to Israel, saying Jews deserve security in every country. But we say to our Jewish brothers and sisters, Israel is your home. And now the blog. 21 Egyptian Coptic Christians were beheaded by ISIL over the weekend. ISIL's special brand of terror has reached a fever pitch, as not only mass beheadings are occurring, but now the burnings of captives in cages has been added as a means of executing prisoners in the most gruesome of ways. This action brought about the military response from Abdullah II, the King of Jordan. As I posted last week, thousands of Jordanian troops are now massed on the Iraq-Jordanian border. As the link above states, 4,000 U.S. troops are now headed toward Kuwait. Does this signal a U.S. military involvement with the Jordanians? Take a good look at the map, and folks, go to the blog after the show, lamarzulli.wordpress.com. Scroll down. You will see that this is a classic pincer maneuver. Look where Jordan is. Look where Kuwait. Bam. Check it out. Check it out, folks. Take a good look at the map above, and you will notice that Kuwait is below what is called the Arab Shia state. This map was drawn a while ago, and it shows Iraq divided into three smaller countries between the Shia, Sunni, and in the north, the Kurds. Kuwait is below Iraq, and with the Jordanians' military buildup to the west, this move by the U.S. creates perhaps, and I'm speculating here, perhaps creates a two-front war on ISIL, a classic military pincer maneuver. Added to this is the rise of anti-Semitism, as we saw with the killings of Jews in a French market and the exodus of Jews from Yemen and elsewhere in the Middle East and in Europe. I was speaking to Gary Stearman over the weekend, and in fact, Richard Shaw and I are in OK City. That's when this was written. The film TV shows for Gary and Bob Ulrich's new show, Prophecy Watchers. Gary stated that at the beginning of both World War I and World War II, most folks didn't even realize that a world war had begun. In other words, when Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated, this was the beginning of World War I. When Hitler annexed Austria and then later on invaded Poland, this was the onset of World War II. Who would have imagined these incidents would lead to what became an all-out world war? Both Gary and I agreed that World War III has, in fact, started. And now, with the movement of Jordanian troops as well as U.S. troops, it would appear that the situation in the Middle East may be at a tipping point. Anti-Semitism has a supernatural component. The hatred of the Jewish people makes no sense at all. I have stated in my book, The Cosmic Chess Match, that the reason for the hatred is that the Messiah, the one who would crush the head of the serpent, Yeshua, Jesus, came from the root of Jesse, the house of David, and was a Jew. Anti-Semitism never died out. And with the defeat of Hitler's Nazis, it migrated south and east into what is now the Middle East. The vitriolic hatred of the Jews knows no bounds at this juncture in history. And this is fueling the terror incidents which we now see on a weekly basis. Obama called ISIL a JV team. He couldn't have been more wrong in his assessment, as these Islamist thugs have killed thousands of people in their wake of setting up their version of Islamic Sharia law. In closing today's post, the times we are living in are certainly tumultuous and, in my opinion, unprecedented. What will happen in the ensuing weeks is anyone's guess. But I believe World War III has started, and the situation in Iraq and neighboring countries will only get worse until ISIL is soundly defeated. As I post every day here, the current political landscape is in direct correlation to supernatural events that happened in some cases millennia ago. We are looking at two different belief systems, the Judeo-Christian belief system and the Islamic one. And frankly, they are at loggerheads with each other. ISIL's brand of Islam will not tolerate any other form of religious expression. While most of the media will not call what is happening a religious war, I will do so. This is what it is. Two different sets of supernatural events which have collectively influenced the body politic, creating the situation we see unfolding before us. With that stated, and as absurd as it may sound in this context, we may be looking at the revealing of the so-called extraterrestrial presence soon. And when they arrive, they will state that they created the world's religion. This would bring an end to the fighting and act as the impetus to forming a one world religious system that the book of Revelation tells us. End times? You bet. Folks, that is two blogs from lamarzulli.wordpress.com. I will be blogging, of course, tomorrow about what I see happening. Italy is preparing for war. Let's put it this way, folks. The ante is up. And we see Russia and the Ukraine. We see Afghanistan with a record opium harvest. We see Pakistan, a lot of nonsense going on there. Perhaps they will throw their hat into the fray. We see an ongoing civil war in Syria, which has killed over 250,000 people with no end in sight. We see Hezbollah entrenched in the north of Israel, Hamas in the south. We see ISIL poised on the Iraq-Jordanian border. We see ISIL carrying out acts of terror all throughout the Middle East. Again, 1.5 billion Muslims on the planet. If only 1%, heck, dumb it down. If a half of 1% are radicalized, that's 75 million people. It's time to face the music, folks. This is not a JV team, and we are in World War III. Folks, you're listening to Acceleration Radio. I am your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. Keep it right here. We're going to be gone for about 3 to 4 minutes. We'll see you on the other side of the break with your questions.
I saw the shroud of Turin. 'Twas more than I could comprehend. The image so peaceful, with blood-stained hands, requesting all that seeking to understand. Surely he has risen. Truly he is the Son of God. He carried away our griefs and our sorrows. He's the same today, yesterday, and tomorrow. I cannot imagine how he suffered in my place. Someday I will thank him face to face. Surely he has risen. Truly he is the Son of God. By his love he has willed. By his stripes we are healed. Some with tears in their eyes. Some seem so hopeful, others asking why. And yet it is written, these things will take place. For those who know the truth, we are covered by his grace. Surely he has risen. Truly he is the the Son of God.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli, on the Fringe Radio Network. You're listening to Acceleration Radio. And the date, for those of you who are listening later, is February 19th, 2015. Keep your eye on the King of Jordan. He's amassed troops on the Iraqi border. This is a huge move on his part. He's also flown airstrikes against ISIL positions in Syria. I believe, and I've said it here a few minutes ago, I'll say it again, this is the beginning of World War III. It is not going to go away. We need to come to grips to what is really happening. Radical Islam is not going to go away. And the radical ISIL group, the only thing they understand is a military response. There are just wars. This is one of them. The fact that these thugs took 21 Christian people and paraded them down a beach and just cut their heads off is just unspeakable. It's an atrocity. It's a heinous act of cowardice. And the American people need to stand up and begin to demand from their congressmen and senators, demand that we close our borders to these people, anyone coming from Middle Eastern countries which harbor terrorists, no matter who they are or who they say they are. It is time to start closing the borders. And of course, it makes you wonder, why don't they do this, folks? Clean house. Clean house. We need to clean house. Vote the bums out. It's time that these people in Washington become held accountable. Senator Clinton, Benghazi, Eric Holder, Fast and Furious, President Obama, who refuses to call the jihad what it actually is. Let's get on with the questions, because I'm all hot under the collar here. It's just unprecedented where we are and what is going on here. It is just incredible. This is from Daniel. Daniel, first of all, thanks so much for listening to Acceleration Radio, and I appreciate your email. Mr. Marzulli, I came across your website and the wealth of information that you have had to offer when I started my own quest to understand the meaning of the sons of God in Genesis 6. Oh, hold on. I've got another computer working here. Like you, my kids are older and on their own, and I find myself thirsting for knowledge and truth. Yes, I am a Christian and 100% on board with the end time scenarios that you present. My question for your radio show appearance is this. You made mention in one of your lectures that the DNA sample from one of the Nephilim skulls found in Peru, I believe, proved beyond doubt that the Nephilim could not interbreed with humans. Stop right there. I don't think I've ever said that. There is what you're referring to is from a geneticist who says that it's possible, and this is not conclusive, it's possible that there could be no interbreeding between the two species. But he doesn't know that. And that's based on a very small DNA sample which he took, which Lloyd Pye took about 4 years ago, and he was able to do mitochondrial DNA testing. But this is why we're still trying to get the samples out of Peru. And as of February, the 19th? Yeah, February 19th, we have still not been able to do so. I don't know, folks. Until we get the samples out, we don't know. It's only speculation based on that one little DNA test that was done. So everybody's got to take a deep breath. We're on it. We're trying, and we'll go from there. Let's continue. Am I correct in assuming that the Nephilim could, in fact, breed with other Nephilim? Again, Daniel, we don't know. There are some interesting passages when it says the sons of the giant. Well, that's breeding on some level. The Phoenicians were descendants of the Nephilim Canaanites. Yes, they were. So could these different Nephilim tribes with their different physical characteristics produce more offspring together? Again, it's certainly possible. Something is going on. Goliath is there. Og, king of Bashan, is there. Ishbi-Benob is another one. So they're all through the Levant. But we don't know. We don't have all the facts. And that's why we're trying to get the DNA testing. I am just trying to understand the ramifications of that DNA test result, beyond the obvious fact that it proved it was not human, nor in the Darwinian paradigm of distant relatives. Thank you for your time, and I am praying for your continual success. Daniel, we covered your prayers here more than you could ever know. And thank you so much for praying. Keep us keep us lifted up, because we're desperately trying to get the permission to get the DNA samples out. And in some ways, it looks like we take one step closer and then two steps back. So let's move on. This is from Rhonda. Hello, Mr. Marzulli. Love your work and passion for truth. Couple of questions. Are there Nephilim bones on display anywhere in America? Well, the answer to that is, I don't know. I have not been to every private museum in the United States. I will say this, and this was on the Trail of a Nephilim too. What Ralph Glidden unearthed in Catalina is mind-blowing to me. We had 3 different researchers look at the picture that shows Ralph Glidden standing in a recently excavated grave. In front of him is a very large skeleton. We had 3 different people with different computer programs based on the height of Ralph Glidden at 5'8", 5'9" extrapolate the image, digitize it, and everybody placed it at around 9 feet tall. So we don't know what happened to those skeletons. There are no giant skeletons being displayed anywhere. And in fact, any museum will certainly, that I'm aware of, will certainly not attribute this to the Nephilim, because that would in fact validate, or in some way, validate the biblical narrative. And the Darwinists will not do that. That's what's at stake here. The Darwinists believe that the Bible is just a bunch of hooey, it's all superstition, and someone could take that clip out and use that against me. So that's not what I'm saying. I think you all know that. The Bible is the Word of God. And we believe that it's inerrant, and that it's the guidebook of the supernatural, and that it tells us what happened in the far distant past. It also tells us that soon the King will return, and the King is Yeshua, Jesus. And even though we see wars and rumors of wars and famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places, it says later on, when you see these things, look up, because I'm coming back. I'm paraphrasing here. When you see these things, look up, because your redemption is drawing nigh. When you see these things and you're troubled by ISIL beheading things, and when you go to the book of Revelation, isn't it interesting? The souls that are under the altar who were beheaded for their witness. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Is that a fulfillment? You be the judge. We're watching prophecy right in front of us unfold. He's coming back soon. He's got to. And he will rule from Jerusalem. Can't wait. Next part of Rhonda's question, as a pre-tribber, and I am too, I believe that the sudden destruction will coincide with the rapture, after which the great deception will follow, as the Antichrist makes his formal entrance on the world scene. What mix of DNA will he possess? Well, he'll be this serpent seed. He'll be the son of the fallen cherub, Satan, absolutely. And does he have it now? He may be on the planet now, and frankly, I believe that he is. Have you considered a new prime minister of Greece? I've heard about this guy, Alexis Tsipras. Very interesting. I'm watching the King of Jordan. I watch everybody. And here's the reason why, I'll probably get a rash of emails tomorrow from people telling me where I'm going wrong with the pre-trib position. Believe what you want to believe. I don't care at this point. I believe that at the trumpet we'll be beamed out of here. But that's not what the show is about. And as Christians, I'm tired of arguing about it with people. We have souls to win. We have people that are asleep. We have people that are being abducted. People that are being implanted. People that are being harassed demonically. People that will literally lose eternity because they don't know Yeshua. Focus on that. Focus on that. Focus on how we can bring people into the kingdom. How we can show them the love of Yeshua. The love of the Messiah. Quit hitting people over the head with the Bible. King James only. Oh, that's going to do a lot of good, isn't it, folks? If you're a person seeking and you hear some Bible thumper tell you that, what's that going to do? Probably drive you out of the room, make you change the station. Show them a love, because that's what it's about. They will know that we are his disciples by the love we have for each other, not by the fact that we sit there and condemn our brothers because someone reads the Dakes Bible or the Sefer Bible or the Interlinear. God forbid we should do that. See how crazy we get? There's a world out there that doesn't know him, that thinks Yeshua is a reflection of the nonsense they see on Christian TV. Send $1,000 right now, and I will give you your seed faith offering will not come back void. No one talks like that in real life. That's not the Holy Spirit, in my opinion. That's just somebody manipulating emotions. All I know is when God shows up in my life, it's reverence. It's reverent. And I'm convicted of my sin and his holiness. And it's a time of be still and know that I am God. That's who he is. He's amazing. And he loves you right where you are. He loves you right where you are. And if you don't know him, all you need to do is ask. A little prayer, a little request. Prayer is a request. You have a little request. I don't know who you are. But if you are real, come into my life. I believe that you were here. I believe that you died for me. And your blood at Calvary cleanses me of all my little nasties, all the junk that we do. Folks, you want to carry that junk around with you? Yeshua says his burden is easy, his yoke is light. Think about that. He's there. He loves you. He has a plan for your life that's real. That may be something complete. Folks, 35 years ago this June, I became a Christian. I never in a million years would have imagined that I'd be doing a Watcher series, writing books on the Trail of a Nephilim, being on the radio. Are you kidding me? Speaking in front of thousands of people? No way. But I spent a good 25 of those years on the anvil in God's forge. And so will you. And it can be painful at times. It can be painful as he shapes us into the men and women that he wants us to be. Let's move on. This is from Barry about Islamic State. Let's see what he says. Yes, brother, I keep hearing you on Acceleration Radio mentioning ISIL. Isn't it ISIS? Could you explain the difference? It's on the news as ISIS all the time when they mention this. And yes, by the way, I really enjoy these programs. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much, Barry. Here's the deal. Our president, Barack Hussein Obama, still refers to ISIS as ISIL. ISIL, it's an anagram, and it means this: Islamic State of Syria, Iraq, and the Levant. They changed it to just Islamic State. The Levant includes Israel. And that's why the name change. The Levant includes Israel. Make no mistake about it. If Jordan falls, Israel will have to engage. Make no mistake about it. We are looking at World War III, in my opinion. Make no mistake about it. Wake up. Wake up. Because it's coming down like a freight train. Like a freight train. This is from Zelda, L.A. Marzulli. I was very concerned about some issues. First of all, I had been following Dr. Roger Lear, and I found out that he passed away. Well then, this email, I hope that man was born again. If so, he did pass away, Zelda. I think Roger made peace in his heart. We had conversations. The last time I spoke to him, he realized that he admitted that there was a supernatural component to the UFO abduction phenomenon. Zelda continues, I had been following the fact that Roger Lear found alien implants that changed the DNA of man. Well, look, we don't know that for a fact. That's conjecture on our part, but that's what we think it's doing. As well as Douglas Hamp and how the devil wants to change our chromosomes over to be defiled like him forever. This is what Hamp believes. This is what I believe. I then found that Ron Wyatt had found the blood of Yeshua, which had one Y chromosome and 23 X chromosomes, which would then support the fact that Mary was not a god, and that the Holy Spirit conceived Yeshua in the womb and Mary was a virgin. Fine. We all, that's the whole virgin birth. I was thinking about how Roswell was a plant by the devil to establish fiber optics for the end time for the Mark of the Beast system. You're right on the money on a lot of things. Let me see. Does she have a question? Here we go. Do you think that there was some kind of fake blood being created for the end time to deceive the people in the tribulation? I think we're going to see all signs and lying wonders, Zelda. I think that's the quick way to answer your question. I think when 2 Thessalonians warns us that the fallen one, Satan, will come with all signs and lying wonders, I think that is to be taken literally. And I think that what we're seeing is a harbinger of some of those things. And let me put it to you this way. When these things begin to take place, and they are taking place, even as we speak, signs in the heavens and earth, wars and rumors of wars, famines, pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places. Are you aware right now that Oklahoma has more earthquakes than it's ever had? I think 800 last month, something just absurd like this. It's just off the charts. But let's move on. This is Martine Zwayer. Dear Mr. Marzulli, I enjoy your blog very much. I have it in my favorite column. It is the first one I check every day. Well, I'm honored. Thank you. I have learned a great deal. Please keep up the hard work. I am looking forward to coming to one of your conferences as you are getting closer to my neck of the woods. My question is this: have you ever seen a UFO personally? Thank you very much, and may the Lord put his hedge of protection over you and yours. Respectfully, Martine Swear. Martine, here's the deal. Yes, I've seen two, and I've talked about this, and I'll just do it really quickly. Before, the first one, when I was about 12 years old, I was with a bunch of Boy Scouts, four of them. There were four of us. We were taking a shortcut up a ravine. We were hopping from boulder to boulder. It was either in the spring or in the fall. There was a bright blue sky, clear blue sky, I should say. And the first boy, we were all in a single file. I was the last boy. The first boy went, "Wow, what's that?" And the other two kids said, "Wow, what is that?" And I looked up and I said, "Where?" And they pointed, and I looked in the direction that they were pointing. And in front of me was a silver disc about the size of a nail. If you held your thumb out in front of your face, that's what it looked like, the size of your thumbnail, roughly. We watched it for 20 seconds, 25 seconds. The sunlight glinted off of it. It was metallic. And then quickly it just shot up into the sky and left. We ran back and we told the other Boy Scouts in the troop, we saw a flying saucer. We saw a flying saucer. By 5 o'clock that night, because it was in the lunchtime when this happened, the other three boys said that they had just made the story up. I, on the other hand, refused to back down. And so I was ridiculed the rest of the weekend. I was called, UFO boy, flying saucer boy, whatever. Didn't matter. I knew what I saw, and I wasn't going to back down. Seeing is believing. The other UFO that I saw happened when, and this is in Watchers 1, by the way, our co-producer and good friend Richard Shaw did a reenactment of it in Watchers 1. My wife and I are driving up Pacific Coast Highway. It's wintertime. We've just had a wonderful meal. She's driving. I'm in the passenger seat. She goes, "Wow, what's that?" I go, "Where?" She points in front. I see a light, very bright. I go, "Wow, it's probably just an airplane coming at us," because that's what it looked like. And we're looking at this thing, and it's not moving. It's just sitting there. I look at Peggy, and I go, "Honey, I'm not sure what we're looking at." And right after I said that, above the light, a smaller light just appeared out of nowhere and then slowly descended into the larger light. At that point, the larger light disappeared with concentric rings and then vanished. And I went, "Oh my gosh, we're not in Kansas anymore." 3, 4, 5 seconds later, it reappeared. Bam, there it was again. And we watched it, pulled over, and it did this 2 or 3 more times. So I've seen 2 encounters. There was also a third one that we saw from our observation deck, which we call Topside, which is a deck that looks down our canyon to the Pacific Ocean. And last summer, actually, I think the summer before. Yeah, not last summer, but the summer before, we saw something move very, very quickly in the sky, and it was not a satellite. We know what the satellites look like. This was not a satellite. So one silver disk, another light, and another one way up in the ionosphere. Hello, Mr. Marzulli, LA. Please know I am very thankful for the info and work you have done in many areas of study you speak on. I was wondering about your opinion about three people. Mr. Andrew Basaggio claims to time travel. Well, Bob, and this is Fisherman. Bob, thank you so much for writing. I've interviewed Andrew. I've listened to his claims. It's interesting. No way to vet it, so I hold that on the back burner. Miss Laura Eisenhower, who's talked about UFOs, I get that. I think she is. I think basically what she talks about is the UFO disclosure, and I think she's got information, and she's, again, someone to listen to. Sometimes it's hard to vet some of this stuff. Captain Randy Kramer, retired U.S. Marine, claims to have been on Mars. I'm not aware of his story. Very interesting. Then you're right, Bob. These stories are quite bizarre. I noticed 2 out of 3 who had this knowledge started having experiences at age 5 to 6 years old. Can you shed light, please? I look forward to your response and expect you cannot answer all mail, but pray you would find time for this one. Well, Bob, the man who was implanted, whom we call Bill, was also taken between 5 and 6. This is an age where the children are taken and they are implanted. And of course, Bill was 45 when we took his implant out, and that's all in Watchers 8. Look, the bottom line is this. There is a phenomenon which is going on, and it's not going away. And the church needs to wake up and address what is happening and come to terms that these are not extraterrestrials. They are, in fact, interdimensional beings. And we better have an answer for it, and that's what we do here on Acceleration Radio. Let's move on. Sue, don't you think that God is, this is from Sue, sorry. Don't you think that God is moving against the Jews all over the world? He is wanting them to return to Israel, probably going to take some drastic measures since they do not like to leave. This is what I have not only heard, but also seen by Scripture, that they need to return. Well, Sue, I don't think God is against the Jews, first of all. I think that the time of Jacob's trouble deals with Israel and the Jews. And this is why Israel has been called back to her ancient homeland, never to be removed out of that homeland again. We are looking at the prophecies of Psalm 83, Ezekiel 38, 39. These are Old Testament prophets. Ezekiel, Psalms are in the 23rd Psalm, which we know. Many of these were songs. Psalm 83 talks about a confederacy of nations going up against Israel that are soundly defeated. Psalm 83, Ezekiel 38, 39 basically discusses the same thing, except there are different nations that go up against the land of unwalled villages, i.e. Israel. They are soundly defeated. Not every Jew will go to Israel. Netanyahu was welcoming them. This is why we are in the end times, Sue. It all hinges around Israel. And replacement theology, in my opinion, is a damnable heresy. Replacement theology is nonsense. The Jews are God's chosen people, and we are grafted in. This is from Tracy. We're coming down to 9 minutes left. Dear LA, I first want to thank you so much for your ministry. Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate it. You have helped me to gain so much more insight into what is happening in our world. Come quickly, Lord Yeshua. And I certainly agree with that one. Anyway, I recently watched a video by Ken Klein with Noah Hutchings called Jerusalem and the Lost Temple of the Jews. It pointed out something that seems to me to have been largely ignored. Jesus stated in Matthew 24, do you see all these buildings? I tell you the truth, not one stone will be left upon another. Every stone will be thrown down to the ground. If this is true, and I believe the word is truth, then how could the area that the Dome of the Rock sits upon be the temple site? There are plenty of stones still sitting upon each other there. Humans are infallible, but God and his word are not. The temple site has to be in a different location, one that has been forgotten about in history, and tradition put it where the Wailing Wall is. I would love to get your opinion. If this is correct, then it would change everything, since the Jews would not have to wait to build their temple over the Muslims. I hope this isn't too long. Hope to hear your take on this soon, Tracy. First of all, the Wailing Wall is the wall from the fortress Antonia built by the Romans. It has nothing to do with the temple. No one knows where the temple stood. It's all speculation. Nobody knows. Bob Cornuke is trying to tell us, and he may be right, that the temple is built outside, completely outside the Temple Mount. And he may be right. But no one really knows. And what we do know is that the Wailing Wall has nothing to do with the Temple Wall. So Jesus' words are true. Let's move on. This is from Franklin. Dear Ellie, I have a question. Would the church endure the tribulation? It seems to me that yes, since we would have 7 years, 3.5 years of false peace, 3.5 years of the wrath of Satan. Therefore rejoice. And you go on from there. The wrath of God, but church is safe from it. So this is, Franklin, you're basically telling us what the pre-wrath position is, that we will be here for the first 3.5 years of the tribulation. I don't agree with that. I believe that we're going to be taken out before that, and we can agree to disagree. I will say this, though. We're already seeing stuff, Franklin, that makes the hair in the back of my neck stand up. It's a question, how much longer will it continue before we are taken up? Frankly, I hope it's sooner than later. This world is ruled by the prince of the power of the air, as is evident. Just look what happened last week or over the weekend with 21 Christians being decapitated for no fault other than that they were Christians. Jim, I noticed you did not get to my question on your show last week or this week. I'm sure you ran out of time. Are you still planning to address it? And I'm going to address it right now, Jim. LA. I have been what some Christians call awake for several years now, and I've been struck by a nagging question, namely, why have I been blessed with the gift of discernment when it comes to biblical truths in such areas as those you speak, but to many other Christians, many that I know from personal experience, have great faith in and dedication to the Lord, simply cannot bring themselves to believe what the Bible clearly states on these issues, such as giants, the coming great deception, demons masquerading as aliens. When I broach these subjects with most fellow believers, I am suddenly viewed as a nut job. Why are some chosen to receive these truths and others seemingly cannot? Jim, I've lost friends over this, and that's okay. I've gained new ones. Most people are asleep. Most Christians do not understand a supernatural worldview. In other words, we read things in our Bible like virgin births, floating accents, talking donkeys, staffs that appear and become snakes, other staffs that become snakes with them, men that are swallowed by great fish and are regurgitated 3 days later, other men that walk on water, water that is changed into wine. Shall I continue? Those are all supernatural events. And we sit in our pews and nod our heads like dumb sheep and tell everybody that we profess to believe them, and yet we won't look at what's manifesting on the planet now, and that's the whole purpose of our ministry. Welcome to the club. Try to find other people that are of like-minded. I've got to tell you, some of the prophecy conferences that we do, that's who come. People that are fellow nut jobs. And that's why, 500, 1,000 people will be there. By the way, I'll be speaking at Lionheart Ministries coming fairly soon. It's in March, and let me get to the other computer here because that's what I need to do in order to see this. Hello. It's so slow tonight. Sorry, folks. But I believe it's March 12th. With Russ Dizdar, Randy DeMaine. So, check it out, folks. We would love to see you there. And that's what these conferences are about, because it allows us to get together and talk about the things that we love, which, of course, is prophecy and the coming of our Lord. Folks, that's all the time I have for tonight. You're listening to Acceleration Radio. I am your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. Thank you for listening to Acceleration Radio on the Fringe Radio Network. And remember, folks, I'll see you either on the air or in the air. Good night, everybody.